She stopped a stranger outside a closed courthouse and begged him to marry her by morning. He agreed instantly. What she didn't know, the businessman she'd just married was a mafia boss in hiding, and his enemies were already watching. The rain came down in sheets, turning the sidewalk into a mirror of neon and headlights. Hannah stood outside the marriage registry office, staring at the locked glass doors like they might open through sheer force of will. They didn't. She checked her phone. 11:47 p.m. In 12 hours and 13 minutes, she would lose everything. Her grandmother's house, the only thing left that still smelled like home, like cinnamon tea and old books, would be seized by the bank. All because of a clause buried in her grandfather's will that she'd never bothered to read until it was too late. Property transfers to the eldest grandchild upon marriage before age 30, or reverts to estate liquidation. Hannah had turned 30 last month. She'd spent weeks trying to find a loophole, a lawyer, anyone who could help. But the will was ironclad, and the deadline was tomorrow at noon. No marriage certificate, no house. It was medieval and ridiculous, but it was also the law. So here she was, soaked to the bone, with no plan and no options. That's when she saw him. He emerged from the covered parking across the street, moving with a kind of confidence that didn't hurry for rain. Tall, dark suit that probably cost more than her car, sharp jaw, and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they touched. He carried an umbrella, but didn't bother opening it. Hannah didn't think. Thinking was what had gotten her nowhere. She ran. "Excuse me." Her voice cracked as she stepped directly into his path. I need your help." The man stopped. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Not because he was large, but because he was still. Completely, unnervingly still. Like a predator deciding whether you were worth the effort. "Move." His voice was low, accent faint, European, maybe Russian. "I need a husband," Hannah blurted out. That got his attention. One dark eyebrow lifted, just slightly. "Excuse me? Not like that." "I mean, yes, exactly like that, but not for the reasons you're thinking." The words tumbled out in a desperate rush. "I need to be married by noon tomorrow, or I lose my house. My grandmother's house. It's the only thing I have left, and there's this stupid clause, and I've tried everything, and the office is closed, and I don't know what else to do." She was rambling. She knew she was rambling. But she couldn't stop. "I'm not insane, I promise. I need someone to sign papers with me tomorrow morning. That's it. You'd never have to see me again. I can pay you. Not much, but..." "How much?" Hannah blinked. "What? How much can you pay?" He tilted his head, studying her the way someone might study an interesting insect. Not cruel, just curious. $3,000. That's all I have in savings, but... "No." Her heart sank. Of course. What had she expected? That some stranger in an expensive suit would just agree to marry her because she asked nicely? She stepped back.
"Right. Sorry.
I shouldn't have. I'll do it for free." Hannah froze. "What?" The man slipped one hand into his pocket, utterly casual, like he agreed to marry strangers every Tuesday. "I'll marry you tomorrow. No payment necessary." Why? Does it matter?
Yes.
Of course it matters. People don't just agree to marry strangers for no reason. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. Or calculation. "Let's say I have my reasons. You need a husband by tomorrow." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "A temporary arrangement that benefits us both." Hannah's instincts screamed that this was a terrible idea. That normal people didn't do things like this. That she should walk away right now and find another solution. But she was out of time, out of options, out of everything except desperation. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay," he echoed. Then he extended his hand. "Victor." She took it. His grip was firm, warm despite the rain. "Hannah." "Well, Hannah." Victor released her hand and finally opened his umbrella, holding it over both of them. "We should discuss terms. There's a cafe 2 blocks from here. Still open."
"Now."
"You wanted a husband by tomorrow." That gives us less than 12 hours to make this look legitimate. He started walking, clearly expecting her to follow. We'll need to establish a story, coordinate documents, and set very clear boundaries. Hannah hurried after him, her mind spinning. This was insane. This was the most reckless thing she'd ever done. But as they walked through the rain-soaked streets, something Victor had said nagged at her. Make this look legitimate. Not make this legal, or make this official. Make it look legitimate. Like someone might be watching. She glanced at Victor's profile. Strong, controlled, carefully blank. The kind of face that gave nothing away. What do you do for a living? She asked. Import and export. Of what? Victor's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Various things. Nothing you need to worry about. That should have been her second warning. The first was agreeing to marry a complete stranger. But Hannah was cold, wet, and running out of time. So she pulled her jacket tighter and followed Victor into the warm glow of the cafe ahead, telling herself that 24 hours with a mysterious stranger was a small price to pay for saving her home. She had no idea how wrong she was, or that by tomorrow night, she'd be running for her life. The cafe was nearly empty. A tired barista wiped down the counter, and an old man nursed a coffee in the corner, lost in a newspaper. Victor chose a booth at the back, away from the windows, facing the door. Hannah slid into the opposite seat, suddenly aware of how she must look, dripping wet, hair plastered to her face, desperation written all over her. Victor, somehow, looked completely composed. He'd barely gotten wet. Coffee, he asked. Yes. Please. He ordered 2 black coffees without asking how she took hers. When they arrived, Hannah wrapped her hands around the cup, grateful for the warmth. Victor didn't touch his. He leaned back, studying her with those unreadable dark eyes. Tell me about the house, he said. It's nothing special.
Small.
2 bedrooms. My grandmother raised me there after my parents died. She passed 6 months ago, and I thought the house was mine, but apparently my grandfather had other ideas about legacy and marriage, and she stopped herself.
Saudi.
You don't need my life story. No, Victor agreed. I don't. But I need to know what we're protecting and why. Details matter. Why do you care? Because if we're going to do this, we do it properly. Half measures get people caught.
Caught.
Strange word choice. The registry office opens at 9, Hannah said, pushing the thought aside. We sign the papers, I submit them to my lawyer by noon, and then you're free to go. I won't bother you again.
No.
Hannah blinked.
No.
That's not how this works. Victor finally lifted his coffee, took one deliberate sip. If we marry in the morning and I disappear by afternoon, it looks suspicious. Marriages have witnesses, paper trails, digital footprints. People notice inconsistencies. Who's going to notice? It's just paperwork. Your lawyer will notice. The bank will notice. And if they decide to investigate whether this marriage is legitimate, they'll find it very convenient that your husband vanished the moment you secured your inheritance. He was right. Hannah hated that he was right. So, what are you suggesting? 48 hours, Victor said. We maintain the appearance of a legitimate relationship for 2 full days. I stay at your house tomorrow night. We're seen together in public. Maybe we take a few photos. By the time I leave, it looks like a whirlwind romance that simply didn't work out. Hannah's stomach twisted. Having him in her house, in her space, felt far more invasive than signing papers. But what choice did she have?
Fine.
48 hours. Good, Victor set down his cup. Now, the rules. First, no questions about my work, my background, or where I go when I'm not with you. What you don't know can't hurt you. The way he said it made Hannah's skin prickle. Second, no emotional attachment. This is a transaction. We're helping each other, nothing more. Obviously. Third, if at any point I tell you to do something, you do it immediately without argument. No hesitation. Wait, what? Why would you need to tell me to do anything? Victor's expression didn't change, but something hardened in his eyes. Insurance. Consider it my payment for helping you. That's not. Those are my terms, Hannah. Accept them or find another stranger to marry before dawn. She wanted to argue, to demand answers, to walk away from this entire insane situation. Instead, she said, "Fine. I agree." Smart, Victor pulled out his phone, tapped something quickly. "Give me your address. I'll meet you there tomorrow at 8:30. Dress nicely but not formally. We're a couple in love, not business partners." Hannah recited her address, watching as he typed it in. His phone never lit up his face. He had the brightness turned almost completely down. And when a notification flashed across the screen, he dismissed it so quickly she barely saw it. But she saw enough. 3 words in Russian, and an icon that looked like a red star. "We should go," Victor said abruptly. He stood, dropping cash on the table, far more than 2 coffees cost. "You need rest. Tomorrow will be demanding." Hannah followed him outside. The rain had softened to a drizzle. "Victor?" she asked as they stood under the cafe awning. "Yes." "Why are you really doing this?" For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he looked at her, and for just a second, she saw something beneath the careful control. Not kindness. Not warmth. Necessity. "Because right now," he said quietly, "I need to be someone I'm not. And a wife makes excellent cover." Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone, disappearing into the night like he'd never been there at all. Hannah stood alone in the drizzle, wondering what she'd just agreed to. Across the street, a black car sat with its engine running and its lights off. Neither of them had noticed it, but it had been there since they'd entered the cafe, and it was still watching. The courthouse was smaller than Hannah expected. Sterile white walls, fluorescent lights, and the faint smell of floor cleaner. She'd imagined her wedding day 1,000 times as a little girl. Never like this. Victor arrived exactly at 8:30, wearing a different suit. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a white shirt and no tie. He looked like he was heading to a business meeting, not a marriage. "Ready?" he asked. Hannah smoothed down her blue dress, the nicest thing she owned that wasn't funeral black. "As I'll ever be." They walked inside together. Victor's hand settled on the small of her back, warm and proprietary. To anyone watching, they looked like any other couple about to make it official. The clerk was a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain. She barely looked up as they approached. "Marriage license." Victor produced documents from his jacket. Hannah stared. "When did you?" "I had them prepared last night," he said smoothly. "No point wasting time." The clerk examined everything with practiced efficiency. "Witnesses." "We have 2 waiting," Victor said, gesturing toward the hallway. Hannah turned to see 2 people she'd never met before, a young woman in a professional blazer and an older man in a gray suit. They smiled politely, like this was completely normal. "Who are they?" Hannah whispered. "Associates," Victor said. "Don't worry about it." The ceremony took 7 minutes. They stood before a judge who recited words Hannah barely heard over the pounding of her heart. She said "I do" when prompted, her voice surprisingly steady. Victor's "I do" was calm, measured, like he was confirming a dinner reservation. "You may kiss the bride." Hannah's eyes widened. She hadn't thought about this part. Victor stepped closer, his hand cupping her jaw with unexpected gentleness. "For appearances," he murmured, so quietly only she could hear. Then he kissed her. It was brief, chaste, perfectly appropriate for a courthouse wedding. But Hannah felt it down to her toes. Not because it was passionate, but because it was so controlled. Like everything Victor did was calculated 3 moves ahead. When he pulled back, his expression was unreadable. The witnesses signed. Papers were stamped. The clerk handed them a marriage certificate with all the enthusiasm of someone processing a parking ticket. "Congratulations," she said flatly. And just like that, Hannah was married. They walked out into the morning sun. The 2 witnesses disappeared without a word, vanishing into separate cars that pulled away immediately. "Your house?" Victor asked.
Yes.
"I need to get these papers to my lawyer by noon. I'll drive you." His car was exactly what she'd expected, sleek, black, expensive. German engineering that purred rather than roared. The interior smelled like leather and something else. Gunpowder?
No.
That was ridiculous. Hannah directed him to her lawyer's office first. Victor waited in the car, engine running, eyes constantly scanning the street. She noticed he'd parked facing the exit. Inside, her lawyer, a kind man named Mr. Patterson who'd known her grandmother, examined the marriage certificate with obvious relief. You cut it close, Hannah. I know. But it's valid, right? The house is mine. Everything's in order. I'll file this immediately, he smiled. Your grandmother would be happy you found someone. Guilt twisted in Hannah's stomach. Grandmother would have been horrified. Back in the car, Victor drove to her neighborhood without needing directions. He must have looked up the address, memorized the route. That's it, Hannah said, pointing to the small yellow house with a willow tree in front. Home. Victor parked on the street, studying the house with the same calculating gaze he'd given everything else. His eyes tracked the sight lines, the neighboring houses, the street's exit points. Charming, he said, though his tone suggested he was thinking something entirely different. They went inside. Hannah's house was exactly as she'd left it, cluttered with books, smelling faintly of lavender, filled with her grandmother's furniture and memories. Victor moved through it like he was cataloging everything. He checked the windows, tested the locks, examined the back door. What are you doing? Hannah asked. Making sure it's secure. It's a quiet neighborhood. Nothing ever happens here. Victor turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something like concern in his eyes. Not for himself. For her. Things change, he said quietly. Before she could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor shifted, shoulders tensing, jaw tightening. He typed something quickly, then pocketed the phone. I need to make a call, he said. Private. He stepped into her backyard, closing the door behind him. Through the window, Hannah watched him pace, phone pressed to his ear. Even from inside, she could see the change in him, the careful control replaced by something sharper, more dangerous. He wasn't speaking English. Or Russian. It was something else entirely. And whoever was on the other end was getting orders, not suggestions. When he came back inside 5 minutes later, his expression was perfectly calm again. Everything all right? Hannah asked. Victor smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Perfect, he lied. Now, shall we discuss sleeping arrangements? Sleeping arrangements? Hannah repeated. Victor gestured around the small living room. I'll stay tonight. Tomorrow night as well, as we agreed. Where would you prefer I sleep? I thought you'd just leave after we finished with the lawyer. And I explained why that won't work. Victor set his keys on the coffee table with deliberate precision. 48 hours, Hannah. That was the deal. She had agreed to this. But having him here in her grandmother's house felt like inviting a wolf into a dollhouse. The guest room, she said finally. Upstairs, first door on the left. The sheets are clean. Thank you, he didn't move toward the stairs. Instead, he walked to the front window, adjusting the curtain slightly. Do you have a security system? A deadbolt. That's not a security system. It's a quiet neighborhood, Victor. The most exciting thing that happens here is Mrs. Chen's cat getting stuck in trees. He turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. He wasn't amused. He was calculating threat assessments in a place where the biggest danger was expired milk. Humor me, he said. Tonight, keep your curtains closed. Lock all the doors and windows. Don't answer the door for anyone. You're being paranoid. I'm being careful. There's a difference. Before Hannah could argue, her phone rang. Her lawyer. Everything's filed, Mr. Patterson said cheerfully. The house is officially yours. Congratulations again, my dear. Relief flooded through her. It was done. The house was safe. When she hung up, Victor was watching her. Good news, he asked. The best. It's over. The house is mine. She smiled for what felt like the first time in months. Thank you. Really? I know this was strange, but don't thank me yet. The way he said it made her smile fade. What does that mean? It means the next 48 hours matter just as much as the signature. He checked his watch. I have some work to handle this afternoon. I'll be back by 6. Don't leave the house. Excuse me? Just for today. Tomorrow you can move freely. Victor, you can't just. 6 o'clock, Hannah. He picked up his keys. Keep the doors locked. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. Hannah stood in her living room, equal parts relieved and unsettled. The house was hers. That's all that mattered. Victor would be gone in 2 days, and life would return to normal. She spent the afternoon trying to convince herself of that. Around 4 o'clock, she made tea and sat by the window, watching the neighborhood. Mrs. Chen walked her dog. The mailman made his rounds. 2 kids rode bikes down the sidewalk. Normal. Everything was normal. Then she noticed the car. Black sedan, tinted windows, parked 3 houses down. It had been there when Victor left. She remembered because she'd watched him drive away. 2 hours later, it was still there. Engine off. No one getting in or out. Just
Sitting.
Hannah told herself she was being ridiculous. It was probably someone visiting a neighbor, or someone on a phone call. Cars parked on streets all the time. But Victor's warning echoed in her mind. Keep the doors locked. At 5:30, the sedan's engine started. Hannah's heart kicked into a higher gear. The car rolled forward slowly, passing her house at a crawl. The windows were too dark to see inside, but she felt it, the weight of being watched. It reached the end of the street, turned around, and came back even slower. This time, it stopped directly in front of her house. Hannah stepped away from the window, pulse hammering. She grabbed her phone. Should she call the police? And say what? A car was parked legally on a public street. The sedan sat there for 3 minutes. 3 minutes that felt like hours. Then it drove away. Hannah released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. At exactly 6 o'clock, Victor's car pulled into her driveway. She yanked the door open before he could knock. There was a car. It was watching the house. Victor's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. What kind of car? Black sedan. Tinted windows. It drove by twice, then parked in front for a few minutes. Did you see the license plate? No, I didn't think to look. Victor stepped inside, immediately checking the windows. It's gone now.
Yes.
Maybe 15 minutes ago. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Describe it again. Every detail. As she talked, Victor's jaw tightened incrementally. When she finished, he made a call. South side, he said in that other language. 20-minute perimeter. Report anything. He hung up. Victor, what's going on? Probably nothing. That didn't sound like nothing. He turned to face her fully, and for the first time, she saw something like regret in his eyes. I was hoping we'd have more time, he said quietly. Time for what? Before they found me. Before who found you? Hannah's voice came out higher than she intended. Victor moved to the window again, his movements economical, precise. People I've been avoiding. What people? Victor, you need to tell me. No, I don't. He pulled the curtain shut with finality. That was the first rule, remember? No questions. That was before strange cars started watching my house. Which is why you should pack a bag. Just essentials. We may need to leave quickly. Hannah's stomach dropped. Leave? I just got this house. I'm not leaving. Victor turned to face her, and the expression on his face was colder than she'd seen before. Not cruel, but absolutely resolute. The house means nothing if you're not alive to live in it. Stop being dramatic. It was probably just someone lost or... It wasn't. The certainty in his voice silenced her. They stood in her grandmother's living room, surrounded by doilies and photo frames and the life Hannah had been so desperate to preserve, and suddenly it all felt fragile, like something that could shatter with one wrong move. I'll make dinner, Hannah said finally, because she didn't know what else to do. Victor nodded. I'll be upstairs. She watched him climb to the guest room, moving with that same quiet efficiency. Everything he did was controlled, measured. Even the way he closed the door was silent. Hannah stood alone in her kitchen, hands shaking as she pulled out pasta and sauce. She'd married a stranger. A stranger who spoke multiple languages, had people watching her house, and carried himself like violence was a language he was fluent in. What have I done? Upstairs, she heard footsteps. Then nothing. She cooked in silence, the familiar routine not nearly as comforting as it should be. When dinner was ready, she climbed the stairs and knocked on the guest room door.
Come in.
Victor sat on the bed, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. His phone was in his hand, but he set it down immediately, face down, always face down. For the first time, Hannah noticed the scars. Thin white lines across his forearms.
Old burns, maybe. Or cuts.
Dinner's ready, she said. I'm not hungry. You need to eat. Hannah. It's pasta. Nothing fancy. But you're my house, and I cooked, so you're eating. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Like he wasn't used to people telling him what to do. He followed her downstairs. They ate in awkward silence. Victor took measured bites, his attention constantly drifting to the windows, the door, his phone on the table beside him. Do you ever relax? Hannah asked.
No.
That's sad. It's survival. She set down her fork. Victor, I need you to tell me something. Anything. Because right now, I'm sitting in my house with a man I married this morning, and I don't even know if that's your real name. He studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he answered. It's my real name. Viktor Konstantin Volkov. He took another bite. And, before you ask, yes, I'm Russian. Naturalized here 15 years ago. What do you do? Really? I told you. Import, export. Of what? Victor's jaw tightened. Things people need. Things other people don't want them to have. I facilitate transactions between parties who can't meet in the open. That's incredibly vague. It's meant to be. Are you a criminal? That depends entirely on which country's laws you're applying. Hannah's appetite vanished. So that's a yes. I prefer to think of myself as a businessman operating in gray markets. He met her eyes. I don't hurt innocent people, Hannah. I don't deal in anything that harms children. But I'm not a good man. Don't confuse necessity with morality. The honesty was somehow worse than a lie would have been. And the car outside. Competitors. Or enemies. The line blurs. He pushed his plate away. I've been restructuring my operations. Some people aren't happy about it. They're looking for leverage. Leverage like a wife. Yes. Hannah's laugh was bitter. So I went from losing my house to becoming a target. Great trade. I didn't know they'd find me this quickly. But you knew they were looking. Victor didn't deny it. Hannah stood, gathering plates with shaking hands. You should have told me. Would you have agreed if I had?
No.
Exactly, he stood as well, and suddenly the small kitchen felt smaller. I gave you a choice, Hannah. 48 hours. That deadline still stands. After that, you're free. If I survive that long.
You will.
I promise you that. The conviction in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified her. Because men like Victor didn't make promises lightly. Which meant he expected the next 2 days to be dangerous enough that his promise mattered. That night, Hannah lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Around midnight, she heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. Victor, pacing. At 2 a.m., his phone rang. She heard his voice through the wall, sharp and commanding in Russian. At 4 a.m., she crept to her door and peered out. Victor sat at the top of the stairs, silhouetted by moonlight, a gun resting on his knee. Hannah closed her door silently and didn't sleep at all. Morning came with false brightness. Sunlight streamed through Hannah's curtains like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't spent the night listening to her husband pace with a gun. Her husband. The word felt absurd. She found Victor in the kitchen, looking like he'd slept perfectly, suit pressed, hair neat, no shadows under his eyes. Only the coffee pot, already empty, suggested he'd been awake for hours. We need groceries, Hannah said, because normalcy felt like the only weapon she had left. Victor looked up from his phone.
No.
I have eggs and half a loaf of bread. Unless you plan to survive on coffee. Make a list. I'll have them delivered. Victor, I've lived in this neighborhood for 28 years. I'm not going to hide in my own house because of one suspicious car. Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, calculation. He was weighing options, risks, outcomes. Fine, he said finally. But I'm coming with you. It's a grocery store, not a war zone. He didn't answer. He just grabbed his jacket. The market was a 10-minute walk. Hannah had made this trip hundreds of times. Past Mrs. Chen's house with its garden gnomes, past the park where she'd learned to ride a bike, past the corner where the ice cream truck always stopped in summer. Victor walked beside her, hands in his pockets, eyes constantly moving. He tracked every car, every person, every open window. You're going to give yourself a heart attack, Hannah said. Better than the alternative. Inside the market, Hannah tried to shop normally. Vegetables, bread, coffee. The ingredients for her grandmother's stew recipe. Victor stayed close. Too close. Like a shadow she couldn't shake. She was reaching for tomatoes when she noticed him stiffen. What? She whispered. Don't turn around. Man in the gray jacket, 3 aisles back. He's been following us since produce. Hannah's hand froze on a tomato. Maybe he's just shopping. He's not shopping. He hasn't picked up a single item. Her pulse quickened. What do we do? Keep shopping. Act natural. Victor's hand moved to the small of her back, gentle but steering. We're going to the checkout. Stay close to me. They moved through the store with forced casualness. Hannah grabbed items at random, cereal she didn't need, milk she already had, just to look normal. At the checkout, she dared a glance back. Gray jacket. Mid-30s, stocky build. Watching them with undisguised interest. When he saw her looking, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Victor. I see him. Victor paid cash, precise bills, no waiting for change. Walk normally. Don't run. Outside, the sunny morning felt too bright, too exposed. Hannah clutched the grocery bags like they could protect her. They made it half a block before Gray Jacket emerged from the store. He wasn't alone anymore. 2 other men flanked him, appearing from a car parked across the street. Victor, Hannah breathed. Keep walking. They're getting closer. I know. The men were 20 feet behind. Then 15. Their footsteps echoed on the sidewalk, too loud, too deliberate. Victor's hand tightened on Hannah's arm. When I say run, you run straight home. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. What are you going to? Volkov. The shout came from behind them. Russian accent, thick and mocking. We just want to talk. Victor stopped walking. Everything in Hannah's body screamed to run, but Victor's grip kept her in place. Stay behind me, he said quietly. Then louder in Russian. Talk then. Gray Jacket laughed, answering in the same language. Hannah didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Threatening, confident, amused. Victor's response was colder than ice. The man's smile faded. He said something else, sharper. Victor's answer was a single word. Gray Jacket's hand moved toward his jacket. What happened next took 3 seconds. Victor moved with terrifying speed. He grabbed Hannah's grocery bags and threw them at the nearest man, then stepped forward, not back, forward, closing the distance before Gray Jacket could draw whatever weapon he was reaching for. There was no dramatic fight. No movie choreography. Victor's hand caught the man's wrist, twisted it at an angle that made Hannah's stomach turn. The man gasped in pain. Victor leaned in, whispered something that drained all color from Gray Jacket's face, then released him with a sharp push. The man stumbled back, cradling his wrist. His companions tensed, but Gray Jacket barked something in Russian, a command, and they backed away. Victor didn't move. He stood perfectly still, watching until all 3 men retreated to their car and drove away. Only then did he turn back to Hannah. She was shaking. Are you hurt? He asked.
No.
What just happened? Victor picked up the scattered groceries with mechanical efficiency. A conversation. That wasn't a conversation. Yes, it was. Just in a language you didn't understand, he handed her the bags, his expression unreadable. We need to go.
Now.
They walked back in silence. Hannah's legs felt like water. When they reached her house, Victor didn't go inside immediately. He circled the building first, checking windows, scanning the street. Finally, he unlocked the door and ushered her inside. Hannah set down the groceries with trembling hands. "You need to tell me what's happening. Right now." Victor locked the deadbolt. Both locks. Then he turned to face her. "You want the truth?" "Yes. The truth is you're married to someone very dangerous people want dead. And now they know you exist." Hannah backed up until she hit the kitchen counter.
Dead.
Yes, Victor's tone was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. "I've made enemies. Powerful ones. They've been looking for me for 6 months." 6 months? What did you do? "I took something that belonged to them. Or rather, I took something they believed belonged to them." He moved to the window, checked the street. "An organization. Resources. Territory. I didn't ask permission. You stole from criminals. I liberated assets from people who were using them incorrectly." Victor turned back to her. "The previous leadership was inefficient, brutal. They dealt in things I won't touch. So I removed them." Hannah's mind reeled. "Removed them? You mean?" "I mean exactly what you think I mean." The casual way he said it made her stomach turn. "You're a murderer." "I'm a lot of things." Victor crossed his arms, leaning against the wall with infuriating calm. "Murder is one of them. So is protector, revolutionary, businessman, husband, as of yesterday." Don't make jokes." "I'm not joking." His eyes met hers, and there was no amusement there. Only cold honesty. "I run an organization built on fear and loyalty. We operate in shadows. We move money, information, and occasionally people. We don't deal drugs to kids or traffic human beings, but we're not legal. And we're definitely not safe." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you asked. And because after this morning, you deserve to know exactly who you're standing next to." Hannah gripped the counter behind her. "Those men. They work for the people you took everything from." "What's left of them, yes." "The organization fractured after I took control. Some followed me. Others scattered. A few are trying to rebuild what I destroyed." He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo, gray jacket from the market. Dmitry Kozlov. Low-level enforcer. The fact that they sent him means they're getting desperate. "What did you say to him?" "At the end." Victor's expression darkened. "I told him if he came near you again, I'd make sure his family received his body in pieces." The words hung in the air like smoke. "That's horrible," Hannah whispered. "That's survival. They need to believe I'll do it. Because if they think I'm bluffing, they'll come back with more men and fewer warnings." "Is this what the next 48 hours looks like?" "Threats and violence. If we're lucky, yes. If we're unlucky," Victor trailed off, then seemed to decide honesty was the only option. "If we're unlucky, they'll try to take you. Use you as leverage to draw me out. Or hurt you to hurt me." Hannah's knees went weak. She slid down to sit on the kitchen floor. Victor crouched in front of her, not touching, just present. "I need you to understand something, Hannah. The moment you stopped me on that street, the moment we signed those papers, you became part of my world whether either of us wanted it or not."
They know about you now. They'll use that.
"So, what am I supposed to do? Just wait here to be kidnapped?"
No.
"You're going to survive." He said it with absolute certainty. "Because I'm going to make sure of it."
But you need to listen to me.
"When I tell you to move, you move. When I tell you to hide, you hide. When I tell you to run, I run." "I know." Hannah laughed bitterly. "God, I just wanted to save my grandmother's house. And you did. At what cost?" Victor was quiet for a moment. Then, "After 48 hours, you can walk away. I'll make sure they know you mean nothing to me. That you were a convenience, nothing more. Once they believe that, you'll be safe." "Will they believe it?" "They will if I'm convincing enough." His jaw tightened. "And I can be very convincing." Hannah looked at him. This stranger she'd married. This dangerous man who'd somehow become her only lifeline. "What if I don't survive the next 48 hours?" "You will." "You can't promise that." Victor's hand moved then, just slightly, resting on the floor near hers. Not touching but close. An anchor? Yes, he said quietly. I can. Because I've survived worse with less. And I won't let them take you. That's not a promise, Hannah. That's a fact. The conviction in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, it was the first thing that had felt solid all day. Okay, she said finally. Okay. What do we do now? Victor stood, offering her his hand. Now we leave.
What? No.
You said 48 hours. That was before they found this address. The house isn't safe anymore. He pulled her to her feet. Pack essentials. 5 minutes. We're going somewhere they can't track. Victor. 5 minutes, Hannah. Starting now.
His phone rang.
He answered in Russian, listened, then his expression went completely cold. When he hung up, he looked at her with something like regret. Change of plans, he said. We have 3 minutes. Pack now or leave with nothing. Outside, an engine rumbled to life down the street. The hunters had found them again. Hannah didn't argue. The look on Victor's face killed any protest before it could form. She ran upstairs, grabbed her grandmother's old travel bag, and threw in whatever she could reach. Clothes, phone charger, her grandmother's wedding ring from the nightstand. Her hands shook so badly, she dropped her toothbrush twice. 2 minutes. Downstairs, she heard Victor moving with purpose. Drawers opening. Something heavy being moved. When she came back down, he had a black duffel bag she'd never seen before. Where had that come from? Had he brought it this morning? Ready? He asked.
No.
But does it matter? Not really. He moved to the back door. We're going through the yard. There's a car waiting 2 streets over. How? I made arrangements this morning. Just in case. He opened the door, scanned the backyard. Stay close. Don't stop for anything. They moved through her grandmother's garden, past the tomato plants Hannah had planted in spring, over the fence she'd helped her grandfather build when she was 12. Everything familiar now felt like a trap. The neighboring yard belonged to Mr. Patterson, different Patterson, no relation to her lawyer. Elderly, mostly deaf, usually asleep by 9. His yard was overgrown, easy to hide in. Victor moved through it like a ghost. Hannah crashed behind him like a burglar, every snapped twig making her flinch. They reached the street. A gray sedan sat at the corner, engine running. Not Victor's car from this morning. Something older, more forgettable. A woman sat in the driver's seat. Young, blonde, professional-looking. She nodded at Victor without speaking. Get in back, Victor told Hannah. She obeyed. Victor slid in beside her, and the car was moving before his door fully closed. Clear? Victor asked in English. 2 cars circling your wife's neighborhood, the woman answered. Eastern European accent, though lighter than Victor's. They haven't breached the perimeter yet. We have maybe 10 minutes before they realize you're gone. Route. Industrial district, then the safe house on 7th. Clean approach, 2 backup routes if we're followed. Victor nodded. Only then did he look at Hannah. This is Katia. She works for me. Katia glanced in the rearview mirror, her eyes sharp and assessing. Mrs. Volkov. The name sounded wrong, like a costume that didn't fit. Just Hannah, she managed. As you wish. Katia took a sharp turn, then another. Her driving was smooth but purposeful, each move calculated. They drove in silence through neighborhoods Hannah barely recognized. The city looked different when you were running from something. Streets became corridors, intersections became choke points. How many people work for you? Hannah asked Victor. Enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Katia spoke in Russian. Victor answered sharply, his tone leaving no room for argument. They crossed into the industrial district, warehouses and shipping facilities, most closed for the evening. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of amber and shadow. The safe house was a 3rd-floor apartment above a closed electronics repair shop. Katia parked in an alley, scanned the street, then nodded. Clear for now. I'll maintain watch. Victor led Hannah up a narrow staircase, unlocking 3 separate locks on a reinforced door. Inside, the apartment was sparse. Functional furniture, blackout curtains, nothing personal. Home sweet home, Hannah muttered. Victor locked the door behind them. It's secure. That's all that matters. For how long? Long enough. He set his duffel bag on the table, unzipped it. Hannah's breath caught. Inside was enough firepower to start a small war. 2 handguns, something larger that might have been an automatic rifle, ammunition, and other things she couldn't identify.
Jesus, Vitor.
Precautions. He removed 1 handgun, checked it with practiced efficiency. There's food in the kitchen. Bathroom works. Bedrooms, through there. You should rest. Rest? Are you insane? Possibly. He set the gun within easy reach. But I'm also realistic. We'll be here at least tonight, possibly tomorrow. You need sleep. I need answers. I need to know what the hell is happening. Victor's expression hardened. What's happening is that men who want me dead now know I have a wife. What's happening is they'll use any leverage they can find. What's happening is I'm keeping you alive while I clean up a mess that should have been contained weeks ago. By clean up, you mean? I mean exactly what you think I mean. Hannah sank onto the couch. How is this my life now? Victor's phone buzzed. He read the message, and something in his expression shifted. Not fear, focus. I need to make calls. Private ones. He moved toward the bedroom, then paused. Don't answer the door. Don't go near the windows. Don't call anyone. I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference. He disappeared into the bedroom, closing the door. Hannah sat alone in the safe house, surrounded by weapons and shadows, trying to process how 24 hours ago her biggest problem was a house. Through the bedroom door, she heard Victor's voice. Cold. Commanding. Speaking in Russian, with the tone of someone giving orders that would have consequences. She caught one phrase she'd heard before. Heard it in movies, read it in books. 2 words that chilled her blood. Abrat Yego. Remove him. Not remove like relocate. Remove like erase. Hannah pulled her knees to her chest and finally let herself admit the truth. She hadn't married a man. She'd married a monster. And the worst part, he was the only thing standing between her and worse monsters. Hannah didn't sleep. She lay on the stiff couch, listening to Victor's voice through the bedroom door. He spoke for hours, sometimes commanding, sometimes negotiating, once in a tone so cold it made the apartment feel 10 degrees colder. Around 3 a.m., silence finally fell. She must have dozed off eventually, because when she opened her eyes, gray dawn light filtered through gaps in the blackout curtains. Victor stood at the window, a thin sliver of curtain pulled aside. He'd changed clothes, black shirt, dark pants, but looked like he hadn't slept at all. How long have you been standing there? Hannah asked. Few hours. He didn't turn around. Katia reported in. No movement overnight. They're regrouping. That's good, right? It means they're planning something bigger. He let the curtain fall. Get up. We need to talk. Hannah sat up, her neck aching from the couch. About what? Victor pulled a chair from the small dining table, positioned it facing her. He sat, elbows on knees, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. The 48 hours are almost up, he said. Hannah blinked. Had it really been 2 days? Time had blurred into a mess of fear and adrenaline. Already? By this afternoon, our agreement ends. Victor leaned back. Which means you have a choice to make. What choice? Stay married to me or don't. The bluntness of it caught her off guard. What? If you stay, you'll be protected. I have resources, safe houses, people loyal to me. You'll never want for money or security. His eyes met hers. But you'll also be a target. For as long as you're my wife, you'll be leverage. And my enemies are creative about how they use leverage. Hannah's mouth went dry. If you leave, Victor continued, I'll make it known that you were a convenience. A paper marriage. Nothing more. I'll be convincing enough that they'll believe it. You'll go back to your life, your house, your normal world. You'll be safe. Will I? Hannah challenged. They've seen me. They know who I am. They'll lose interest once they believe you're worthless to me. It might take a few weeks, but they will. He said it with such certainty. I'll have people watching you from a distance just to be sure. But you'll be free. It sounded perfect. Exactly what she'd wanted when this insanity started. So why did her chest feel tight? What do you want me to choose? She asked. Victor's expression didn't change. What I want doesn't matter. Yes, it does.
No, Hannah.
It doesn't, he stood, walked to the window again. I'm not a good man.
You know that now.
I've killed people. I'll kill more. I live in a world where trust is currency and weakness is death. That's not a life I'd wish on anyone. But you deserve the truth before you decide, he turned to face her. If you stay, I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I won't change who I am or what I do. But I will protect you. With everything I have.
Why?
The question burst out before Hannah could stop it. Why do you care? I'm just some desperate stranger who stopped you on a street. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Because, he said finally, in 2 days, you've never once tried to use me. You've been terrified, angry, confused, all reasonable responses. But you haven't asked for money beyond our original deal. Haven't tried to manipulate the situation to your advantage. Haven't pretended to be something you're not. He crossed his arms. That's rare in my world. People always want something. But you just wanted your grandmother's house. That's refreshing. That's a terrible reason to keep someone in your life. Probably something that might have been a smile flickered across his face. But I stopped making good decisions about 6 months ago when I started a war I might not win. Hannah stood, moved to the window beside him. Through the gap in the curtains, she could see the industrial district waking up, delivery trucks, early workers, normal people with normal problems. If I stay, she said slowly, what would that actually look like? Honestly, I don't know. Victor's voice was quieter now. I've never had a real wife before. The marriage would be legitimate. You'd have access to everything I have. But you'd also live with the constant knowledge that danger could come through the door any moment. Sounds exhausting. It is. Hannah watched a pigeon land on the building across the street. Such a small, normal thing. Can I ask you something? Yes. Last night on the phone. You ordered someone killed, didn't you? Victor didn't hesitate. Yes.
Who?
Someone who needed to be removed from the equation. Someone who would have come for you eventually if I'd left him alive. The casualness of it should have horrified her. Maybe it did. But there was something else too, something she didn't want to examine too closely. Relief. I need to think, Hannah said. You have until noon. Victor checked his watch. After that, I need to move regardless. Either with you or without you. He walked to the bedroom, paused at the door. For what it's worth, he said without turning around, I hope you choose to leave. You deserve better than this. Then he was gone, door closing softly behind him. Hannah stood at the window, watching the world wake up, trying to decide between the safety of lies and the danger of truth. She had 4 hours to choose. Hannah was still at the window when the world exploded. Not literally, though the sound that shattered the morning quiet made her think otherwise.
Car doors slamming.
Shouting in Russian. Footsteps pounding up the stairwell. Victor appeared from the bedroom instantly, gun already in hand. Get down. Hannah dropped to the floor as the apartment door shuttered with impact. Someone was trying to break through. The locks will hold, Victor said, moving with terrifying calm. Katya, report. He had an earpiece in. When had he put that in? His expression darkened at whatever response he received. How many?
Pause.
Understood. Defensive positions. Another impact on the door. The frame cracked. Victor. Bedroom.
Now.
There's a closet with a false back. Get inside, and don't come out until I get you. What about you? I'll be fine. Move. Hannah ran. The bedroom was sparse, just a bed and the closet Victor mentioned. She yanked it open, shoving aside empty hangers until she found the panel in the back. It swung inward, revealing a crawlspace barely big enough for one person. She squeezed inside, pulling the panel closed just as the apartment door finally gave way. Through the thin walls, she heard everything. Boots on hardwood. Victor's voice, cold and commanding in Russian. Other voices responding, at least 3, maybe 4. Then gunfire. Hannah pressed her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. The sound was deafening even through walls and closet panels. Sharp cracks that made her whole body flinch. It lasted maybe 20 seconds. Felt like hours. Then silence. Footsteps. Someone moving through the apartment. Hannah held her breath, pressing herself into the corner of the crawl space. The bedroom door opened. Clear. Victor's voice. Katia, status.
A pause. Copy.
I'm bringing her down. The closet opened. Light flooded in. Victor stood there, not a scratch on him, though his shirt had blood spatter across the shoulder. Not his blood. Come on. We need to move fast. Hannah let him pull her out. What happened? Later. Can you run? Yes. Then run. He led her through the apartment. Hannah tried not to look at the bodies, but she saw enough. 3 men, sprawled in positions that suggested they'd died quickly. Professionally. Katia was in the stairwell, her own gun drawn. 2 more outside. They're contained, but we have maybe 3 minutes before police arrive. The car? Ready. East exit. They descended the stairs at a run. Hannah's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Outside, the gray sedan was running. But Katia led them past it to a different vehicle, a black SUV with tinted windows. Change of plans, Katia said. They knew about the sedan. That stopped Victor.
How?
Someone talked. I'll handle it later. Victor's jaw clenched, but he pushed Hannah into the back seat and climbed in after her. Katia took the wheel, and they were moving before Hannah could process what had just happened. They drove in tense silence. Katia took random turns, doubled back twice, clearly checking for tails. Are they following us? Hannah asked. Not anymore, Victor said quietly. What does that mean? He didn't answer. He was typing rapidly on his phone, messages firing off one after another. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Katia spoke. We're clear. Where are we going? Hannah asked. Somewhere they won't think to look, Victor said. He made a call, spoke in rapid Russian, then hung up. His expression was darker than Hannah had ever seen it. What is it? She asked. They took one of my people. Used him to find the safe house location. Victor's voice was ice. He's young. Inexperienced. They exploited that. Is he? He'll be dealt with. After I deal with the people who orchestrated this. The way he said dealt with made Hannah's stomach turn. How many were there? She asked. 7 total. 3 made it into the building. 4 stayed outside as backup. Victor looked out the window. It was a statement move. Not meant to succeed, meant to send a message. What message? That they can reach me anywhere. That nowhere is safe. He turned to face her. They were supposed to take you, Hannah. Not kill me. Take you. The realization hit like ice water. They wanted to use me.
Yes.
To draw me out. To make me careless. His hand curled into a fist. That ends today. What are you going to do? Victor's eyes were colder than she'd ever seen them. I'm going to remind everyone why they were afraid of me in the first place. Katia pulled into an underground parking garage. The SUV descended 3 levels before stopping in a corner far from any cameras. We stay here until dark, Victor said. Then I end this. End what? He looked at her, and for the first time, Anna saw the man beneath the control. The one who'd started a war and intended to finish it. The people hunting us. I know where they're hiding. He checked his gun, reloaded with mechanical precision. By tomorrow morning, they won't be a problem anymore. You're going to kill them all? Yes.
No hesitation. No apology.
Hannah should have been horrified. Should have demanded he let her go right then. Instead, she heard herself say, be careful. Victor's expression softened, just fractionally. I will. And somehow, she believed him. Victor left at midnight. He didn't say goodbye, just checked his weapons one final time, exchanged a few words with Katia in Russian, and disappeared into the darkness of the parking garage. Hannah sat in the SUV's back seat, Katia silent in the driver's seat, and waited. The hours crawled. Katia remained alert, occasionally checking her phone, but offering no conversation. Around 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. She read the message, nodded to herself. "What is it?" Hannah asked. "It's handled." "What's handled?" Katia met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "You should try to sleep, Mrs. Volkov." "I can't sleep. Not while he's out there doing whatever he's doing. He's doing what he does best. Surviving." "You've worked for him long?" Hannah asked. Katia was quiet for a moment.
For years.
"He saved my brother's life. I owe him everything."
He seems to collect people like that.
People who owe him. He collects people he trusts. That's different. Katia turned in her seat. "You want to know if he's a good man?" "I can't answer that. But I can tell you he's fair. And in this world, fairness is rarer than kindness." Before Hannah could respond, Katia's phone rang. She answered, listened, then handed it back to Hannah. "He wants to talk to you." Hannah took the phone with shaking hands. "Victor?" "It's done." His voice sounded tired. "No one will be coming for you now. Are you okay?" A pause. "Define okay. Are you hurt?" "Nothing serious. I'll be back by dawn. Katia will keep you safe until then." "Victor, I need you to listen carefully, Hannah. What I did tonight, there's no coming back from it. I eliminated a threat, but I also made a statement. For the next few weeks, maybe months, my world will be unstable. Dangerous." He took a breath. "Which is why I'm giving you an out." Hannah's chest tightened. "What?" "When I get back, I'll have divorce papers. Clean, simple, dated before any of this happened. You sign them, you walk away. I'll make sure everyone knows you were nothing but a convenience. You'll be safe. And if I don't sign them..." The silence stretched so long Hannah thought the connection had dropped. "Then you stay," Victor said finally. "And you accept everything that comes with it." "I haven't decided yet." "I know. But our 48 hours are up at noon today. Whatever you choose, choose with full knowledge of what I am." His voice softened slightly. "I'll see you at dawn." The line went dead. Hannah handed the phone back to Katia and stared out at the concrete pillars of the parking garage. Dawn came with gray light filtering down from the garage levels above. Victor appeared like a ghost, emerging from the shadows with dried blood on his sleeve and exhaustion carved into his face. Katia got out, spoke with him quietly. He nodded, then opened the back door where Hannah sat. "Let's go," he said. They drove to a different apartment, nicer than the safe house, in a building that looked almost normal. Victor led her inside, to a space that was clean, furnished, anonymous. "This is secure," he said. "You can stay here as long as you need." He set a manila envelope on the kitchen counter. "Divorce papers." Hannah stared at them like they might bite. "I signed my half already," Victor said. "You sign yours and it's done. Like the last 3 days never happened." "Except they did happen."
Yes.
"But you can choose to walk away from what they mean." Hannah moved to the counter, pulled out the papers. They were thorough, professional. Dissolution of marriage, no fault, clean break. She'd get nothing from him. He'd get nothing from her. Like they'd never existed to each other. "You really think I can just go back to normal?" she asked. Eventually, Victor leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "It won't be easy, but you'll survive. You're stronger than you think," says the man who's seen me terrified for 3 days straight. Terrified and surviving are not mutually exclusive. Hannah looked at the papers, then at Victor. Really looked at him. The blood on his sleeve. The exhaustion in his eyes. The way he held himself like he was carrying the weight of a world she'd only glimpsed. "What happens if I don't sign?" she asked. "Then you're my wife. Legally, publicly, permanently." Victor's expression was unreadable. "And everyone in my world will know it, including my enemies. There will be more enemies. Always. More nights like last night, probably. More running, more hiding, more violence." "Yes." Hannah picked up the pen sitting next to the papers. Victor's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Resignation, maybe. Or acceptance. She held the pen over the signature line. and then she set it down. "I'm not signing," she said. Victor straightened. "Hannah, I'm not signing because you're right. I deserve to make this choice with full knowledge of what it means." She turned to face him. "And I choose to stay." "You don't know what you're choosing." "Yes, I do. I'm choosing the man who kept me safe when he had every reason not to. Who gave me the option to leave when it would have been easier to keep me trapped. Who's honest about being a monster instead of pretending to be a saint." She stepped closer. "I'm not saying I'm okay with everything you do. I'm not saying I'll ever be comfortable with the violence. But I'm saying I choose to stand beside you anyway." Victor stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "You're insane," he said finally. Probably Hannah smiled and meant it. "Seems like I fit right in." Victor didn't move for a long moment. Just stood there, studying her like he was searching for the crack in her resolve, the moment she'd realize her mistake. "You're serious," he said finally. "Completely. This isn't a romance novel, Hannah. There's no happily ever after here. Just survival and the hope that tomorrow doesn't bring something worse than today. I know. You'll live in constant danger. I know. You'll be married to a man who's killed people and will kill again." "Victor," Hannah cut him off. I know all of it. And I'm still choosing this." He ran a hand through his hair, a crack in his usual composure. "Why?" "Because for the first time in months, I feel alive." The words surprised even her, but once they were out, she knew they were true. "Since my grandmother died, I've been going through the motions. Working, sleeping, trying to hold on to a house because it was the only thing that felt real. But these last 3 days, terrifying as they've been, I've felt something." She moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "And because you gave me a choice, really gave me one. You could have lied, manipulated, or forced me to stay. But you handed me divorce papers and told me to save myself." She touched the envelope on the counter. "That's not what monsters do. You'd be surprised what monsters are capable of when it suits them." "Maybe. But I don't think that's what this was." Victor's jaw tightened. "You think you know me after 3 days?"
No.
"But I know myself. And I know I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what if." She held his gaze. "I'm not asking you to change, Victor. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm just asking you to let me choose this."
Choose you.
"Choose us." The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then Victor did something unexpected. He laughed. Not a lot, just a short, sharp sound that might have been disbelief or surrender. "You're absolutely insane," he said again. But this time it sounded almost.
Fond.
"So you've mentioned. My world will eat you alive. Then teach me how to survive it." Victor shook his head, but she saw it. The moment his resistance crumbled. The moment he stopped fighting what she was offering. "Rules," he said finally. "If we're doing this, we do it my way." "What rules?" "First, you learn to defend yourself. Gun training, hand-to-hand, situational awareness. You're not going to be a liability." "Agreed." "Second, when I say something's dangerous, you listen."
No arguments, no debates.
"I've survived this long because I trust my instincts." "Reasonable." "Third, you keep your identity separate from mine as much as possible. Your friends, your life, your work, they stay clean. If something happens to me, you need to be able to walk away." Hannah frowned. "That sounds like you're already planning to leave." "I'm planning for contingencies." "That's different." Victor's expression softened slightly. "I won't always be able to protect you, Hannah. But I can make sure you're able to protect yourself." She nodded. "What else?" "That's it. 3 rules. Everything else we figure out as we go." Seems simple. It won't be. But simple rules are easier to follow when everything else is chaos. Victor pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then pocketed it again. "What was that?" Hannah asked. "Letting my people know the situation has changed. That you're not a temporary arrangement anymore." His eyes met hers. "That you're permanent." The words settled over her like a blanket, warm and terrifying all at once. "So what happens now?" she asked.
Now.
Victor glanced at his watch. Now we disappear for a while. I have a place outside the city. Quiet, secure, far from anyone who might cause problems. We'll go there until things settle. And then we come back. We build something that looks normal on the surface. You keep your house, your life. I keep my organization. And we figure out how to exist in both worlds without destroying each other. Hannah smiled. That's ambitious. I don't do anything halfway. Victor moved to the window, checked the street below out of habit. We leave in an hour. Pack what you need. Victor? He turned. Thank you for giving me the choice. Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. Thank you for being brave enough to make it. He crossed the room, and for the first time since she'd met him, he touched her without calculation. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek, and his eyes held something she hadn't seen before. Not love.
They weren't there yet.
But possibility. I can't promise you safety, he said quietly. I can't promise you peace. But I can promise you I will always be honest. And I will always give you the choice to leave. And if I never want to leave, then I suppose we'll figure this out together.
He kissed her then.
Not like at the courthouse, not for show or appearances. This kiss was real, tentative, like they were both learning a new language. When he pulled back, Hannah was breathless. 1 hour, he said again. Then we start over. Both of us. Hannah watched him move to make more calls, coordinating their escape with the same efficiency he'd used to eliminate his enemies. She should have been terrified. Should have signed those papers and run. But as she looked at the divorce documents still sitting on the counter, and signed unwanted, she felt something she hadn't felt in months.
Hope.
Not for a fairy tale. Not for a perfect life. But for something real. Something chosen. Something worth fighting for. Victor glanced back at her, caught her watching, and something like a real smile crossed his face. What? He asked. Nothing, Hannah said. Just thinking about how I stopped a stranger on a rainy street and accidentally married a mafia boss. And I'd do it again. Victor's laugh was genuine this time. You really are insane. Good thing you like insane. I'm starting to. They left an hour later, driving toward a future neither of them could predict. Dangerous, uncertain, built on a foundation of 3 days and a choice made in defiance of common sense. But it was theirs. And for Hannah, that was enough.